Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me is Ethan Chernofsky. He's Vice President of Marketing at Placer.ai. We're going to take a look at food for thought and how our grocery behavior has changed amid COVID-19 and what it could potentially look like going forward. Ethan, it's great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining me on Trade Talks.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, and let's take a look at just how our behavior has changed when it comes to grocery shopping, because I think one of the most noticeable things that we saw when we all went into lockdown was that mad drive to almost hoard grocery products, and it feels like it changed our mentality in general. But now that you're starting to see some of those trends, what's different in terms of when we shop and what time we shop?
So I think the biggest change that we've seen, and it's a fascinating one, is that consumers are clearly choosing to shop in the mornings. And this has some pretty significant implications. So on the one hand, it's showing that we don't love the fact that we are forced to do our shopping at times that are less convenient for us in a perfect world. So having to go after work in the evenings. And this could impact the way we shop. It could impact the amount of items we would want to buy. It could impact which products we buy and how we do our meal planning and how we live our lives on a daily basis.
And then also when you think about what time we shop versus when we shop, so you're seeing it where it's more happening on the weekdays versus the weekends, or is there a discernible trend in terms of when we're most likely to go to the store?
Sure. And I think it's absolutely a clear trend that we're seeing people actively choose to shop during the week as opposed to the weekend. So we saw a massive decrease in terms of weekend traffic at the expense of weekday traffic. So that Monday through Thursday period where you would usually see much lower traffic saw significant increases. And this means a lot in terms of how we shop for groceries and the way we kind of plan our week and the way that we choose which products to buy. But it also has a really significant impact on what else we do with our time. So if I'm normally shopping on the weekend because I have to, and now I can make that choice to shop during the week, I have free time to spend, and that could have massive economic implications for a range of other industries.
Now, how about in terms of how we shop? Like I was mentioning before, it seems as if we are very clear in terms of what we want, and you have termed it, it's very mission intensive.
Mhm. Absolutely. And I think one of the things we've seen, and this is clearly, when we look at some of the other trends, we do see the potential for the sustained impact of this trend. So let's say people go back to work in a semi-flexible manner. We could see a shift towards earlier visits in the day, and we could see a shift towards midweek visits to a grocery store. But one of the things that is clearly a COVID impact is this mission orientation of the shopper. So I go to one place and then I go home. I'm not doing a multi-stop trip like I would retailers like Target or Walmart. And it's going to benefit the traditional grocer that can solve as many of my needs in one specific visit, while hurting some of the groceries that were more a niche player or were part of our trip, but not necessarily fulfilling enough of the bulk of what we needed in one visit.
Now, let's look about, on the other side of COVID-19, what's it going to look like in terms of, will we always have this new drive, or do you think things will go back to normal as they typically do when memory, time heals all wounds, or do you think this is just a new way of how consumers act?
So I think we're going to see two things happen. So one, some of these trends are going to go back to normal. And I think a perfect example is that mission orientation of the consumer. So that was really driven by this fear of going to multiple stores, by the fact that many stores were closed. And so I think we're going to see that go back to normal and many stops on a single trip. But I think the employee and the consumer has been empowered by this process to say, I want a different balance between my work and my home life. So it won't necessarily be this massive revolution of, I'm going to work from home every single day of the week, but it could very well include elements of, I'm going to start a little bit later on a Tuesday so that I can go to the grocery store in the morning and therefore free up time for the weekend or free up time in my evenings. And I think there's a tremendous economic benefit that will be spread around if that trend maintains.
All right, Ethan, thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great to be here.
All right, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.